Hey everyone, how's it going? Hope you're doing good. I'm doing great as always. In this video, I want to go over the FujiFilm X-H2s's autofocus capabilities with concern to video. Now, in my previous video that I made here on YouTube, I talked about the X-H2s's capabilities for autofocus with the new firmware update, the 3.00 firmware update, with concern to photos. But in my last video, several people asked for, hey, how is the autofocus update for video? And so I thought I would go out and do a quick video and and see how the autofocus works with video in mind. So I called up my friend BRoll Halayko. She's a local BRoll here in Japan, and we went out and did a practice shoot. I just basically went out and tried to shoot the kind of clips that I think would look cool in a small 30-second to 1 minute Instagram reel or Instagram story or something like that, and just try to see what I could get done with the with this camera and its autofocus capabilities when shooting video. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. First off, I should mention the specific settings I had when shooting with this camera. So basically, to start off with, the focus mode was AFC, so autofocus continuous, obviously. So then we have the autofocus mode, which I had at multi. So this will basically just take the entire screen and it will search for whatever needs to be in focus on the screen there for yourself. Next is autofocus C custom settings. And so for the custom settings, I took tracking sensitivity to +4 and AF speed was +2. Now, depending on what you're shooting, you're going to want to play around with these ones in particular. And then tracking sensitivity to +4, basically that locks it on the subject. It makes it as sticky as possible from what I could see. And obviously I also had the face eye detector on as well. So just to make sure they could find the face. And that was what we used for the autofocus continuous tracking in the shots. Generally, looking over what we shot, we had, I think, 5 different types of shots that I got throughout the day. So one type of basic shot I got was BRoll Halayko coming straight towards the camera. Now this is a really simple shot. I just stood still and let her walk towards the camera. And you can see here the autofocus did a really good job of finding her face, keeping it on her the entire way through. And it was just a really easy shot. We did this in a couple different locations and it worked out fine. It worked out great every time. Really had no problems with this shot. Okay, so the second kind of main type of shot I had was Halayko standing still and me moving around her. Now this worked out really well for the most part. I was able to move and get really clean shots. The camera found her face really quick, stayed on her eyes, and it was really not an issue at all. We got great shots like this. One issue that I did have a little bit with this was, though, the basic eye detection, the face detection. When the camera was basically flat onto her face and the eyes were almost the same distance to the camera, I found the autofocus was jumping back and forth between the left eye and the right eye. When you look at the clean images that I got afterwards, it was not a problem. The autofocus seems to be clean. It wasn't really a big, distracting change in autofocus really quickly and all that kind of stuff. It was just a little bit unnerving when I was using the camera at first because I'm not an experienced filmer. So I was kind of like, okay, is this normal? Is this going to get it on her? Is the focus going to be clean and that? So I was a little bit worried while shooting, but again, as we looked at the clean shots, it was fine, not a problem at all. If this is an issue that you find that is a little bit not quite your comfortable level when you're shooting, you can pick which eye you can want to have the autofocus stick onto. So you can pick the left eye or the right eye. And again, as we were getting more extreme and she was moving away or I was going which way and that, the camera was doing a really good job of sticking to the closest eye, which is where you always want to have your autofocus. But one clip where I was finding a little bit difficult was I had her purposely stand in behind this kind of green grated fence, and I wanted to move in and put the fence in between her and her face and just kind of get like a neat little effect maybe with the bokeh. And maybe because the holes in the fences were a little bit too small, maybe almost the same size as the autofocus, it was having a little bit trouble really getting on her eye and sticking on it while I was moving around. So just kind of, challenging the camera as much as I can, but it was having a little bit of difficulty on this. It looks like it did it really well in one of the shots, and then another shot not so well. So one thing I could possibly do to fix this is change the camera to autofocus plus manual focus. So I think I could override the autofocus to the manual focus, go in there and really get that focus started on the eye and make it really sticky on there, and then move, and maybe the autofocus will stick to it better. This is just a small situation, but oftentimes, when you are shooting, you want to have that thing going in front of your subject in that. So it would be a little bit better if it was stuck on there a little bit more. Maybe you know better settings than I do, so let me know in the comments below so I don't get this problem again when I'm shooting. And other people who might have this problem can see the comment and it would help them as well. So number 3, or like the third kind of shot we got while we were shooting, would be me pulling Halayko. So while she's walking, I would be walking with her, or any kind of movement where I was moving with her as well to the side and that kind of stuff. And obviously while she was walking towards me and I was just backing up slowly, distance stays the same, her face is in view, And really no issues at all here with the autofocus. It stuck on her really, really well, just kind of like the first one we were doing as well. So those shots are no problem at all. And then another shot I got was of her walking beside me as we're walking along and taking shots from the side. Very, very profile view of her face. And here the camera did great. It really locked on her eye very, very well. I don't think I lost focus even once while we were doing this as we were walking along. And this is, you know, kind of a run and gun shot. Maybe you're interviewing someone as you're walking, you're shooting them as they're walking through their environment. And the camera did a great job of sticking with her that whole time. It was really, really good. And it was awesome. One of my favorite clips I got out of the day was Honoka walking up a little ramp, coming up into the light and then out of the light. And there was a fence in between us. And again, I'm kind of moving with her, moving along and trying to follow along with her. And a couple issues that I had here was, at first the camera was really going to the fence. It's really a prominent fence in front of us, and it was kind of annoying. And it took a few minutes to allow the autofocus to find her, because I was just relying completely on the autofocus here. Like I said earlier in the video, if I had set my camera to autofocus plus manual focus, override the autofocus there for a second, find her, get that on there, and really lock it on her well, that probably could have helped me get the lock on the autofocus quicker. And in the end it worked, but you know, we were struggling for time. I didn't have as much time as I wanted to, so that could have maybe made some of the shots start out quicker and make it a little bit easier to assist the autofocus to find her when there's something in between us, like a fence and stuff like that. I think if using the autofocus plus manual focus and overriding the autofocus every once in a while could be a good thing to do while you're shooting with this camera. Don't just totally rely on the autofocus all the time, every time, with every shot. Now the fourth kind of clip we got, and something I'm sure a lot of people get all the time, was just B-roll, just out there shooting B-roll, and no issues really. The camera was responsive, quick, locking onto something as I moved around just to get a bit of movement in the shot. Well, autofocus wasn't jumping around all over the place. Even when we had some really crazy gyakko, like reverse light, as soon as I gave it any kind of information to lock onto, it jumped onto the fence. Made a really cool shot. I really like that shot actually a lot. Now, B-Girl Honoka is a B-Girl. She can dance. So in several different situations, I got her dancing. For the most part, the autofocus was sticking to her pretty well. It was doing well enough that I expected. So we were shooting in multi, which gives just like the entire screen, and then the camera has to find her face in there and keep the autofocus on her. She's moving around a lot, switching around, moving her back and flipping around and stuff like that. Now, there are some things that I could have done to improve the autofocus in here. There was a very lack of contrast in some of the places I decided to shoot. It was a little bit dark. Her clothes were all dark. Her hair is quite dark. So a couple times the camera was having a little bit trouble tracking her when she was doing certain movements, when she was coming down, and her body was basically just a big blob of clothes and people in the image. And in those situations, I found the camera was kind of bopping to the background a little bit, but as soon as she came around, it came right back to her. So it's not really like the death of the clip, or it's not like I can't use that clip for anything. It was still perfectly fine. And I did find one spot where we had a bit of a lighter gray background when she was dancing there to give some contrast between her and the background. The shot worked a lot better. Maybe in the future when I do these kind of shoots, I make sure that people have a bit brighter clothes, and I choose locations that are a bit more contrasty to the person. So this is a learning experience for me as well, and hopefully that's good information for somebody out there who is shooting something that's like really chaotic and quickly moving things. And also, I think I said this in my previous video as well, you don't have to just use one type of autofocus. You can move to, instead of having it on multi, you can pick area, and then you can choose the area of the camera that you really, really want the camera to focus on. And then you just keep your subject in that, and it'll help follow it and help guide your camera a little bit more. If you're having something that's like non-contrasty, maybe a lot of people in the shot that is confusing the camera or things like that, or you're just having a little bit of trouble with the autofocus staying on in general, and you want to give it a little bit of extra push, using the area could be an option. You know, try that out, give it a shot, and see how that helps your shooting at all. But you know, in general, when I'm doing these kind of shoots and using the face detection in the multi, and it's got the whole screen and she's moving around, what I kind of wish would be better for the camera to do is, say when it loses its autofocus point at that one spot, it doesn't just automatically jump to the background. I kind of wish it would just maybe stop. You know, just like, hey, what I was shooting was on this plane and it's in focus, and it's in focus. It's out of focus now, but I'm just gonna wait a second here and see if it comes back into focus. And not just be like, oh, it's out of focus and I'm gonna jump right back to the background. When she comes back around and has a face to find, it finds it really quick and it jumped back on her. But I think the camera could have a bit of more breathing space for finding or waiting for the subject to come back around. So if it could just breathe for a second and chill and just wait for that person to come back around, I think it would solve a lot of things with the autofocus issue with such sporadic and crazy movement. In the end, I had a lot of fun out shooting with the camera. We were using the Ninja again, which I'm not used to. Whoops. And we're running out of time and running out of light. I wish we could have had like 2 or 3 more hours to shoot. I think in the end we got some cool clips, and if you stick around to the end here, I did a little quick edit and added some music, and hopefully it looks cool. If you're a filmmaker or filming and editing is what you do, and you see some things in what I've done that could be improved on, please let me know. I would really appreciate any kind of help and information on that. Hopefully this is helpful. You guys asked for it, so I went out and did it. If you do have any more questions or comments about the autofocus for the Fujifilm X-H2s, hit me up. I'm down. I still got the camera for a while, so yeah. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot, and cheers. Bye. Check out the edit. Stick around. Check out the edit. She did her good job. She really worked hard.